Hi everyone, welcome to Atlas Crafts. Today we're going to be learning how to crochet a classic granny square. This project is perfect for beginners and is a foundational skill for many projects like blankets, cardigans, sweaters, scarves, backpacks, bags, you name it. By the end of this video, you'll have your very own granny square, just like this one. Let's get started. For this project, you'll need some yarn. Any size 4 yarn is great for beginners, and a crochet hook. I'll be using a 5mm hook today. You'll also want some scissors, and optionally a yarn needle to weave in your ends. I also like to use a stitch marker to see where my rounds start and end. Alright, let's get into a refresher of our basic stitches. For those of you who already know how to do a chain stitch, slip stitch, and a double crochet, don't worry, I'll be including timestamps in the description so you can skip easier. So, the first thing you do before you start any crochet project is a slip knot. What you're going to want to do is lay your yarn out flat and then twist it over itself so that the short end is underneath. Next, take the loop and fold it over the shorter piece. Then finally, you take that piece that's in the middle and stabilize the shorter piece and pull it tight. And it should be so that if you pull the short piece like so, it'll tighten. Now that we have the slip knot on our hook, we can move on to the chain stitch. This is how we create the foundation of our project. Now, a trick I've come to learn is to stabilize that slip knot that's on your hook before you move to yarn over. Now, with the slip knot stabilized, we wrap the yarn around the hook, or yarn over, and then we pull through that slip knot. Repeating this process will create our foundation chain. Each pull through is one chain stitch. Now moving on to our slip stitch. In this project, we use slip stitches to join our rounds. So what I'm doing right here is I'm identifying the end of the row, or the 2 chain stitches we use as a double crochet in this example. Each stitch creates an almost V shape on the edges of the work. What I'm doing is I'm going between those arms of the V, but in the back loop only, the loop farthest from me. Let's look at that again. So as you can see, I find that loop, I yarn over, pull through, and pull through. So you want to pull through both of those loops. Moving on to our third and final stitch, the double crochet. So what I've done here is I've already yarned over. I'm going to insert my hook under the whole stitch, yarn over, pull through. At this point I should have 3 loops on my hook. I'm going to yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, so we're going to try that again. I'm going to yarn over first, insert my hook, yarn over, pull through, 1, 2, 3, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. That's your whole double crochet stitch. Okay, so now we start our pattern. So normally I would suggest to start any project working in the rounds with a magic circle. Now, I would teach you how to do a magic circle, but I never figured it out. So, we're doing a chain stitch joined by a slip stitch. This will create the circular center of the granny square that we're looking for. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm starting with a slip knot on my hook, and I'm chaining 4 stitches. Cut. 1, 2, 3, 4, and I think I'm going to chain 5. So now we should have 4 or 5 stitches depending on how tight we want our inner circle. From here, I'm going to take my hook and I'm going to insert it into that very first stitch where our slip knot is. I'm going to yarn over and I'm going to pull through both loops. So we're going to create a slip stitch to join our chains. This little ring is the center of your granny square. Now, from here, we're going to chain 2, and this is going to count as one double crochet in a cluster of 3. Now, yarning over, we're going to work into the ring 2 more double crochets. Got 1 and a second one, which counts as 3. As soon as I finish that double crochet, I'm going to chain 2 and then work 3 more double crochets into that ring. After that second set of 3, we're going to chain another 2. This pattern repeats 4 times total. As you go, you'll see a square shape start to form. Now that we've reached the end of round 1, we're going to join it with a slip stitch. To do this, we're going to find that second chain of the 2 chains we made in place of a double crochet at the beginning of the round, and we're going to make a slip stitch into the back loop only. What I'm doing next is I'm flipping my work, and I'm taking this little tail that's sticking out of the center of the back, and I'm giving it a good tug. That should close up the center of my circle. Now that we finished round 1, we're going to chain 2, and we're going to add 2 more double crochets in that chain space where our 2 chains are. After your first cluster of 3, we're going to chain 1 and then start our next cluster of 3 in the next chain space. So we've got 1, got 2, and 3. So after that last double crochet, we're going to chain 2, and then we're going to place 3 more double crochets in that same chain space. This pattern of 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets in the same space is going to create the shape of our corners. So from here I'm chaining 1, and I'm going to put another cluster of 3 double crochets into that next chain space.
Now I'm going to chain 2, and I'm going to add 3 more double crochets into that same chain space. This will create our second corner. I find that the easiest way for me to remember this pattern is that there's 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochet in the same space in each corner, and there's a chain 1 space between each corner. I neglected to mention this, but round 2 starts in a corner. We only do 1 cluster of the corner though. So since we started with half of a corner, we're going to end on the other half of the corner. So a recap of this round, just as I finish it up here, we're going to chain 2 and put 2 double crochets in that chain space next to the chain 2. You're going to chain 1, 3 double crochets in the next space, chain 2, 3 double crochets in the same space. This will create our corners. And then after our corner, we chain 1, and we begin our next corner, which is 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets in the same space. So right here, I'm about to start my last cluster. Since we started with a half cluster corner, we're going to finish with a half cluster corner. So right there is my chain space. I'm going to put 3 double crochets into that chain space. Then I'm going to chain 2 and finish our round. As before, to join our round, we slip stitch into the second chain of that chain 2 we started our row with. You can see here something that happens to me often. I get one tiny little strand of another piece of yarn that I did not need. This is fine, I just dropped the strand. And now round 2 is complete. We can move on to round 3. To start round 3, we're going to do what we did with the first 2 rounds, and we're going to chain 2. So it has come to my attention watching this back that right there, I flipped my work. Don't do that. Keep working on the same side you were working on. We're going to begin round 3 the same way we began round 2, half of a corner stitch. So this means 3 double crochets in that first chain space. We're going to chain 1, go to the next chain space right there, and we're going to put 3 double crochets in that chain space on the side. From here, I'm going to chain 1, and then we're going to start another corner. So that's 3 double crochets in the next chain space, chain 2, 3 double crochets in the same chain space. We're going to repeat this pattern of 2 clusters of 3 in each corner and 1 cluster of 3 on each side. So we have 1 cluster and a chain here, we're going to chain 1 more, and we're going to go into that same chain space. What's fun about this pattern is that it's super versatile. So I'm only showing you how to do 3 rounds in this video, but you can do as many rounds as you like. You know how we're doing 2 clusters of 3 in each corner and 1 cluster of 3 on each side? Well, by the time we finish round 3, there will be 2 chain spaces on either side and 1 chain space in the corners, which in turn means that each side will have 2 clusters of 3 in 2 different chain spaces, and each corner will have 2 clusters of 3 in the same chain space. For each round that you complete, you'll notice an extra chain space on each side of the square. So for this round, round 3, there are 2 chain spaces on each side, and by the end of round 3, there should be 3 chain spaces. Round 4, there will be 3, round 5, there'll be 4, so on and so forth. Finally, to finish off our project, we're going to chain 1, we're going to snip our working thread, and we're going to pull that right through, and pull it tight. Not too tight, but tight. And there you have it, 3 rounds of a granny square. One more recap before I let you all go. So in each chain space on the side, there should be a cluster of 3 double crochets, and in each corner, there should be 2 clusters of 3 double crochets separated by a chain 2. Don't forget those chain 1s between the clusters on the sides.
And there you have it, your first granny square. Hope you guys had fun, and hope you guys feel confident enough to try more in the future. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and please let me know in the comments if you have any questions or what you'd like to see from me next. Share your finished granny squares with me on Instagram here, and I'll see you in the next video.